Hello, everyone. I'm so excited that you're able to join today. Before we begin, just so you know, this session is being recorded. So, if you could click continue at the bottom, that would be great. So I'm going to do a quick introductory of myself. I am often introduced by the media as the number 28th ranked player on the WTA Tour and a three-time Olympian. And to the players I work with, I'm known as the elite performance coach, and I'm a familiar face at my kids' tournaments. I'm known as the coach mom. And I was very lucky to have my dad as my childhood coach growing up. I am tuning in from outside of Toronto, Ontario. And if you could do me a favor and let me know in the chat box where you're tuning in from, that would be great. So, I've been in tennis for over 4 decades. So when it comes to tennis related, I just feel like I've pretty much been there, done that. However, to have a better appreciation of my tennis journey, I had put together or file my journey into different boxes, a metaphor that I had learned from the late Kobe Bryant. He was referring to that each of us have a box of different things in there that that holds the key to our deepest desire, that helps us, that motivates us to get the best out of ourselves. So I did just that. I organized my tennis journey into these four boxes. And my first box is it's the determination box. I grew up in Hong Kong, and now these days I think most people know where Hong Kong is. But at the time, most people didn't know. They didn't, there was just a little speck on the map, and nobody didn't know where Hong Kong was. And obviously we weren't seen of being capable of doing well in tennis. And I remember when I started playing ITF tournaments, and my name would show up on the draw, and spectators, or they look at whoever's looking at the draw, and they'll be like, where's Hong Kong? Some player. And when you hear, at least for me, I heard that enough times, it was pretty much a nudge, a big motivation for me to prove people wrong, to make myself heard. Another thing in that determination box was my upbringing. My dad was all about doing the best that you can. Whatever you choose, be the best, exceed your own expectations. And moving on to my second box is inspiration. After I retired from the tour, I transitioned into coaching. Mind you, a lot of players wanted to work with already accomplished players, but perhaps because of my background, I gravitated mostly a lot to the beginners or to the underdogs. And as long as the player, didn't matter if they were beginners, as long as they had that burning desire and they were willing to work, I gravitated towards them. There was this girl. She came to me, I think she was 8, maybe 9 years old. Didn't have much coordination, never played before. I'm talking about couldn't even catch a ball, so forget about hitting balls. But she was very determined. Her goal was to get to the nationals. And so we started working, and 2-3 years later, she got herself and started playing tournaments and qualified into the national 12 and under in the U.S. That to me was a huge accomplishment for me, because that brought in the belief that I wanted to just, whatever I had was to pass it on to the players. And after my coaching career, after my coaching career, oh, by the way, before, I must tell you this. this is all new to me coming, online, do my presentation, because usually I do it live. So please forgive me if I trip, which I think I already did. So, my third box was more about parenting, tennis parenting. We had two kids. We didn't know if they were going to pick up tennis, so we provided opportunities and introduced them to different things. And of course, we were biased with tennis. That would hope that would pick up tennis, and they did. The journey as the tennis parenting. I was reliving my own childhood. The sacrificing was no different. We had to make sure, or rather, to make sure that we made the right, are we making the right decisions in finding the right program? Of course, we were the coach. Are we doing the right thing? What events should they be playing? And of course, there's this money thing, which everybody faces, right? Because it's expensive. So I'm very familiar. I grew up with seeing my parents doing all sorts of sacrificing for me to make it possible for me, and then now became my turn for our two children. Um, One thing I will bring up, though, I know a lot of the audience here, or perhaps you are coaching your children. The pressure that comes from both sides, from the kid side and from your sides, are tremendous. And that was also a fine line that we had to learn. We want to give our kids the most opportunities, right, that we can find for them. And oftentimes, they don't do the things that we expect of them. And there was a fine line where we had to learn when to be parents and when to be coaches. And so having learned the parenting box, then I felt like, okay, into my fourth box, I recognize that my tennis journey and experiences were gifts, as hard as they were, but nevertheless, they were gifts. Tennis has been very good to me, and they were gifts to me, and I wanted to share, because it is a unique experience, because I can relate. I understand the pressure the players feel, to the sacrifice from the parents, to the frustrations from coaches. I empathize with all different perspectives, and it is my intention to share and guide tennis parents and players and coaches to work in one, so that to give the player the best, to help them to be the best that they can be. And that is why 18 months ago, I decided to step away from on-court coaching to speaking at conferences and reaching out to parents, and which of course it's not happening anymore. And so this is where I will be doing my best to connect with you through Zoom for now, until I find a more comfortable platform, I suppose. But like I said, I am going outside of my comfortable element to presentation, to speak with you. So please forgive me if should I trip, but I will learn and get better. All right, so let's get back to today's topic. Preparation matters. Developing your elite mindset during isolation. All right, so when you watch, say, this group of athletes, right? Nadal, Federer, Serena, Thiem, Djokovic, Halep, right? What comes to mind? So is it they are superhumans, super athletes, innate gifts, or super confident? Let me share a secret with you. They are just like you and me. However, what separates them apart from the average is the things that they are willing to do. Not only the things they're willing to do, but the quality that they bring to what they do. And having spent 18 years being exposed among the elite athletes, and I realized that there were some common traits that they all share, or we all shared. And that is what we are going to talk about today. There may not be time for us to cover all of the traits because it's complicated to just put it mildly and in a package as one or two things. That is injustice because it's more than one or two things. But I will touch on as much as we can. And the idea is to touch on it and to give you a takeaway that you can practice it at home. We're not going anywhere. Players, you're not playing. You have no access to courts. You're not going to tournaments, and this is a good time to just reflect on what needs to be better, and try to do it at home and practice a few things that you can that you can control, that you have access to. Right, your garage is a good place. So, what are some of the traits of the elite mindset? Now, I came up with these few categories with subcategories, and one of them is they're obsessed with details. And what does that mean, obsessed with details? Easy for starter. So let's talk about consistency, right? So when players go out, juniors and average player, when they go out to warm up the first 10 minutes or so, right? The balls are never at the same place twice. It's deep, short, left, right, corners, up and back, everywhere on the court. Versus the elite athletes, the elite players, they go on the court, they don't miss many shots. They rally to keep the rallies going. They start with maybe a lower tempo, but they are clean. They're focusing on the impact point. They the whole time keeping the rallies going. And right off the bat, they are working on depth, keeping the ball deep with ease. They're not playing out points and forcing the shots and see who hits the hardest. And then from that consistency, they bring the tempo up. And while they bring the tempo up, they're still focusing on good technique, good split steps, good footwork, getting behind the ball or going up to the ball. They don't just stand there and let the ball bounce 2, 3, 4, 5 times. On the women's side, it's a known fact because I'm of course I'm familiar with the women's side because that's what I am. On the women's side, I would practice with players, and we could have rallies for 15 minutes with one ball. We didn't miss. It was almost an unsaid rule. We were trying to outlast each other without making an agreement. Hey, let's keep this ball going, right? It wasn't a drill for us. It was something we did naturally. You want to show who is the boss on the court by outlasting the other person, and then the depth. So I thought it was just the women's side, and until a few years ago, I had a player had the fortune of hitting with Roger Federer, and Roger didn't miss much. He, kept the ball going, and it was a clear evidence of the difference between an elite-minded and a top junior. And next to Federer was Dominic Thiem, and he did the same thing. Didn't miss many balls, but it was very precise where the ball was landing and the split steps and the follow through, which actually brings me to a thought. I'm going to challenge those players who are locked in today. I'm going to challenge you to go on YouTube. This is something, like I said, there's no access to courts, so you might as well get the resources that's available to you. Go on YouTube, look for your favorite player, and particularly look for practice sessions. Don't look for matches, how they play matches, right? It's going to be a while before you even go back out there. But study. See if you can pick out one or two things that is very deliberately done over and over again by these players. I was watching the other day a practice from Dominic Thiem at the 2019 Indian Wells with his coach. It was so obvious. He was practicing his follow through hitting zone, his split steps, and the depth of the ball. It was done over and over again. And the next drill was, cross court backhand, and being a one-handed backhand, he had to practice a lot of countering that backhand, right? So it was cross court, and he went up the line, changing a direction. They did that over and over again, just repetition. Repetition is the mother of skill. And we've heard that over and over again. But juniors and average players don't like to practice the obvious, the boring stuff, the work, right? They want the champagne shots. They want it fun. Fun at different level, depending where you are. Fun as you get better and older. It's about mastering a skill because you're getting ready for the pressure times. Everybody can look great in the beginning of a point of a game, but when it's 6-all, tiebreaker, and or deuce, the important points, that's when if you have mastered a shot or not, and that has to be done in the preparation phase. And that's where you need to, I know, I understand you don't have a court to go practice these things, but visualize it. When you watch these players, visualize it. Watch what they're doing. Don't just watch, wow, that's a nice outfit. Watch what they're doing. Watch from the footwork to the take back to the follow through. So I challenge you, pick your favorite player and email me. Email me what is it that you see they're doing. Email me the link and I'll check it out for you. And email that to my email address at patricia@patriciahy.com. And we'll go from there. So deliberate practices, right? I said earlier, which reminded me, many years ago, some of you might actually remember Justine Henin from Belgium. She was small in stature, right? 5.5 feet tall and one-handed backhand. We were at this tournament in Quebec City in Canada, and she was just coming up, top 100 player, and but every time I pass them on the practice court, her and her coach, and with the box of balls, that was all they did was her backhand. Hours and hours of hitting that backhand. And of course, no wonder, right? Her backhand became her signature shot. And, she didn't get to number one for 117 weeks by not practicing a certain thing. I mean, obviously, it wasn't just that one shot, but when they went out to practice, every elite player does that. They practice with a purpose to make sure they are a better version of themselves at the end of practice than at the start. And they don't mind working. May not be the most fun thing, it wasn't the sexy thing, but they kept working and working. The work has to be done. And the pain, why it's hard is because it's tedious, it's painful, and nobody wants to do tedious and painful things. But that's what separates the average and the elite mindset. So that is all we have the time for today, unfortunately. And I hope there's a takeaway. I hope you enjoyed this session. And I will be having a session once every week, every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And occasionally I will bring on a guest, a special guest for us. And until next Wednesday, please stay safe. If you have the dying desire to get a hold of me with questions that you want me to answer on the next session, please email me at patricia@patriciahy.com. Stay safe.